Hi, it's Steph Evans here from Evans Creations, and today I'm just going to do a quick tutorial on how to create a long hairstyle. So I'm using 4 strands of thread for this filling section. I think that keeps it nice and thick, and it fills the area really well. And then we're going to add some finer details towards the end. Okay, so just going to keep that there, and I'm going to stitch over that so that it secures it. Don't have to faff around doing knots then, but I'm basically just going to do one long stitch. Okay, and I'm doing the stitch in the direction the hair would fall. So as you can see, that one is like a vertical stitch because that is the way the hair falls on that part of the hairstyle. So I've done one long stitch, I'm doing one short stitch next to it. There you go. And then I'm going to follow that with a long stitch. Okay, there we go. And I'm just going to do that all the way around the hairline. Okay, so I've gone around the left side of the hairline now, around the face, and I'm just getting up to the parting. Now, as you can see, the stitches I'm doing at the minute are following that kind of the way that the hair would naturally lie. It's kind of swept up back from the face, and I'm going to do the same on the parting. So these stitches are going to be horizontal, so as you can see, I'm just going to go straight along that parting, and I'm still doing long stitch, short stitch, long stitch, short stitch. But I want to make sure that these stitches are giving the impression of the way the hair is lying. Okay, so I've completed stitching along the left side of the hair parting. Now I'm going to do the same on the right side, but rather than actually going back through the same hole that I have for each of those stitches on the left side of the parting, I'm going to leave a tiny little gap like you would naturally see a line of the scalp along the parting line. I want to try and do the same within the stitching, so we'll still be able to see a little bit of fabric, which will give the impression of the hair being parted. Okay, so I've finished stitching the right hand side of the parting, so now I'm just going to do a back stitch along that hairline. The hair was falling naturally vertically downwards here on the right hand side of the face. On the left side, the hair was actually swept up back away from the face, which is why I've done the stitches in a kind of like diagonal way. But here the hair naturally fell downwards, so I'm going to make sure those stitches go down. When I get to the ear, I'm actually going to stitch around the ear just to make it a little bit easier for me to differentiate that ear. Okay, so we're going to use the long and short stitch to fill in the rest of this area now. So we're continuing to use stitches vertically, so in the way that the hair is falling, to fill in this area. And we are going to bring the needle up and put it back through the adjacent stitches. So you're actually stitching into the stitches. You're not going through the same hole, you're going into the thread, and then this gives a really good solid effect. But it doesn't look too blocky. It's got quite a lot of texture to it still. Okay, so here I'm just gonna do a long stitch vertically down. I'm going to fill in this corner. Okay, do it a little bit longer. And then here, I'm going to bring it up through the fabric and I'm putting the needle back through that stitch below, so it gives a really nice, good, solid bit of colour. Okay, and we're just going to keep doing that until we've filled in all of this area. Okay, so now that we've filled in that hair using the long and short stitches, we're literally just going to use one strand of thread to add lots of little bits of detail over the hair. So again, we're making sure that these long loose stitches are being made in the direction the hair would naturally fall. So like here, the hair is swept up back from the face, so I'm just doing kind of diagonal longer looser stitches to give the impression that the hair's been swept back off the face. Okay, so just a loose diagonal kind of stitch, and it gives a really nice effect. It just looks a lot more realistic, gives a bit of texture as well. And I'm just going to keep doing this over the hairline, from the front of the hairline all the way to the back, but then I'm going to add it throughout the rest of the hair as well. Okay, so here I'm just going to do longer stitches coming down, and I actually want to come over the shoulder a little bit here so that you can see those trailing hairs. Again, it adds a lot of lovely texture and it looks a lot more realistic, and I'm making sure that these stitches are really loose so I can kind of play around with them afterwards, and kind of I can almost make it look like it's got a bit of a natural kink at the end because of how it's laying on her shoulder. So I'm just adding some details along here, and each stitch is just nice and loose. There you go, so I can just play around with how it falls. So I'm keeping them nice and loose, nice and long, and it really does give that kind of impression of how the hair naturally falls. So just kind of have a bit of a play until you find what you're happy with. Okay, so once you've done all those individual stitches, I like to just have like a little play with the needle to get it laying in the right kind of place. So if you just literally pull the little strands till you feel like it falls in quite a natural direction, and because you've done nice long loose stitches, it's a lot easier to kind of have a bit of a play with the way that they're laying. Okay, so I'm just gonna tease that bit of thread out. I'm gonna do the same here. So like that little kink at the end, I think that looks really realistic when you can achieve that. Okay, there you go. And that is how you embroider long hair.